Thank you for joining us now. I am Frank Omalape. And now the Director of the Legal Services Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Kofo Salam Alada, has said the agency will go tough on banks that continue to fill their ATM machines with old Naira notes as the deadline to phase out the notes draws near. He said the CBN was already monitoring banks that were still dispensing old Naira notes from their ATMs. The director, who represented the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, spoke during a sensitization event on the new Naira notes in Computer Village Market in Lagos Wednesday. Reacting to the questions from traders in the market that some people were selling the new notes, he said anyone caught selling the new notes or any denomination of the Naira will be jailed. Speaking on the new notes, the president of the Coalition of Associations in Computer Village, Timmy Davis, noted that the new Naira notes are a good initiative. The Olukosi of Ikejaland, Chief Latif Olushei, assured the CBN of the support of the traditional ruling house in educating the community. It dispelled rumors that the new Naira note was not durable. According to him, the new notes with more than 35 security features were not easy for counterfeiters to make. Away from that, now the federal government has recorded a revenue shortfall of about 14.2 trillion under the regime of President Muhammadu Buhari, according to data from the Budget Office of the Federation. The data was obtained from the Budget Implementation Report for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. In the period under review, the federal government projected about 43.05 trillion naira revenue to fund its budget, but made only 28.77 trillion naira, as about 66.83% of the expected revenue. In 2016, the federal government's projected revenue was 3.86 trillion naira, but it realized only 2.95 trillion naira. In 2017, the projection was 5.08, while revenue realized was 2.6. In 2018, revenue projection was 7.18, while the government realized only 3.87 trillion naira. In 2019, revenue projection was put at 6.99 trillion and realized about 4.12 trillion naira. And in 2020, the federal government projected about 5.84, but actual revenue amounted to 4.04 trillion naira, while in 2021 revenue projection was put at 6.64, and actual revenue realized was 4.64 trillion naira, and in 2022 projected about 7.48 and realized 6.49. The revenue shortfall echoes concern about the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, over the government's inability to generate adequate revenue. Nigeria relies on oil for the majority of its revenue, and in recent times, the revenue source has been impacted by low production and subsidy payment. From January to July 2022, Nigeria's oil production slumped by 28 million barrels of crude. And now the federal government of Nigeria borrowed about 3.27 billion US dollars from 5 countries between June 30, 2015 and September 30, 2022. Data from the external loans report obtained from the Debt Management Office showed that within the period, Nigeria's borrowings from the 5 countries rose by 206.9% from $1.55 billion in 2015 to $4.85 billion US dollars by September 2022. The 5 countries include China, France, Japan, India, and Germany. In 2015, Nigeria had borrowed 1.35 billion US dollars from China's Exim Bank of China, about $140.25 billion from France Agence Francais Development, and further $3.1 million from Japanese international cooperation agencies, 11.75 million US dollars from Germany's Creditansort Wide borrower, and nothing from India's Exim Bank of India yet, according to a report. By September 2022, the bilateral debt profile rose, with Nigeria owing China $4.09 billion. It also owed France $526.4 million US dollars, Japan with 58.18, Germany with $153.06 million, and India $27.17 million respectively. And now the federal government had sought loan facilities from Chinese lenders to implement several infrastructural projects, including standard gauge rail lines. In the meantime, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, has said the country is planning to reduce its debt service revenue ratio, and the government is not planning to exploit the bonds market in 2023. According to the minister, the federal government is working to reduce the debt servicing to revenue ratio from around 80% in 2022 to 60% in the new year. According to the Debt Management Office, the country's public debt rose to 44.06 trillion in the third quarter of last year. According to her, the government is planning to improve oil production to 1.6 million barrels per day in 2023 and consolidate its non-oil revenue base. She's saying that growth in the nation slowed in the third quarter of 2023, but might moderate to 3.5% in 2023. Away from there now, members of the Association of Organized Private Sector have decried the financial and reputational damage suffered by business entities due to the unending menace of misinformation targeted at its members. The organized private sector stated this during a roundtable discussion on disinformation in Nigeria's private sector. The association, an umbrella organization of business membership organizations representing the interests of the private sector in Nigeria, said it collaborated with the Center for International Private Enterprise to engage the service of Next Year, an Africa-focused public policy consulting firm, to conduct a study on the impact of disinformation on Nigeria's private sector companies. In his keynote presentation, the founding partner Next Year, Patrick Okigbo, said the private sector is highly susceptible to disinformation campaigns, resulting in loss of customer revenues, and that the damage may linger even after the information is debunked. According to him, disinformation creates a significant negative impact on Nigerian businesses, and its most critical impact includes reputational damage to the targeted business, employee or customer disaffection, loss of business, and legal challenges. He also stated that misinformation can lead to the closure or suspension of business operations and negatively impact the economic sector. And now, stakeholders in the country's maritime sector have stated that Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation Limited's reliance on foreign ships for lifting petroleum products is having an adverse impact on local ship owners. A member of the Nigerian Indigenous Ship Owners Association, Emmanuel Ilori, argued that many Nigerian vessels were littering the country's waterways due to the unfavorable cargo policy of the NNPCL. The association said many Nigerian shipowners have been having challenges meeting their loan obligations because the NNPCL failed to patronize them. They said it can create huge employment for Nigerian youth and raise a foreign earning power. On his part, a chartered marine surveyor and ship captain Anthony Onoharigo frowned at the current trend where 98% of the crude oil lifted in Nigeria is done by foreign vessels. He said that oil lifting has the potential of creating huge employment opportunities for Nigerians and also raising foreign earnings for the country.